Our case this week starts at Quincy High School in the 80s. An athlete, Cory Lovelace, is star of the show and golden boy at this school. So much so that when Curtis was given a scholarship to play football at University of Illinois after graduation, a picture of him would go up at the high school under a bulletin called Quincy Blue Devil Hall of Fame. He led his team to a championship his senior year, but ended with a bad knee injury which kept him out of the NFL. During college, Curtis had been long-distance dating a girl named Cory Dietrichson, who was studying communications in Ohio. Friends described them as the golden couple. They were both beautiful according to societal standards, and it seemed like the star football player was dating the star girl type of relationship. In 1991, Cory and Curtis were married just 1 year after college graduation. Curtis attended law school after graduation and became an assistant state's attorney in their hometown of Quincy. Yeah. Cory had actually wanted to be a mother and a wife who was involved in her family's life. And in 1993, Cory and Curtis welcomed their first child, a baby girl named Lindsay. After Lindsay came Logan, and then Lincoln, and then finally their third son, Larson.
Okay.
She's involved in the kids' lives, always going to games and recitals. Curtis actually decided to start his own law firm. As Cory was taking care of the kids and also processing the decline of her father's health due to cancer, Curtis was doing everything he could, but that meant he was away from home. So this whole situation began to take a toll on their picture-perfect marriage. Neighbors reported loud and contentious arguments coming from the house, that they both were heavy drinkers. The weekend before Valentine's Day in 2006, Cory began feeling sick. She was showing flu-like symptoms the night before Valentine's Day. She gets all the Valentine's Day cards ready to go for school the next day for all of the kids. Lindsay, Cory's only daughter, who's now 12, cuddled up with her mom on the couch afterwards and watched the Winter Olympics. But the next morning, still feeling sick, Curtis and she decided that he will cancel his morning class and instead take the kids to school for her so she could get some rest that morning. Curtis drove the kids to school, dropped them off, and made his way back to the house. On the way to the bathroom, Curtis passes the couple's bedroom and sees Cory laying down in their bed through the open door. Curtis steps closer and notices the pale skin. He walks into the room and tries to wake his wife up. He shakes her and Cory doesn't respond.
Has he not called the police yet?
He has not called the police. At this point, Curtis calls his boss and tells him, hey, my wife's dead. His boss calls 911, and Jeff Berry, a detective with Quincy PD, was assigned to the investigation, and the coroner stated that the time of death was very recent, within the past hour. No signs pointed to how it had happened, though. There was no signs of struggle, but it was the position of her body that alerted everyone. Her arms were up by her chest, kind of in the air. Her elbows are on the bed, but her forearms are in the air. And her hands are like strained, which is normal for a body that's been dead for 10 to 12 hours because rigor mortis sets in, and that's when your body freezes up. The autopsy shows a small abrasion around Cory's mouth and a cut inside her lip. They also note that Cory had fatty liver disease. The cause of death was ruled undetermined, and that's kind of what they decide. They closed the case. 6 months after Cory's death, Curtis begins dating a student that had been in his class while Cory was alive. And her name's Erica. She moved in with Curtis and the kids, bringing one kid of her own into the mix. Lindsay and Erica do not get along. And at one point, Erica throws all of Lindsay's clothes out into the street and is like, get out of our house. It was about 2 years after Erica had moved in that they married. They ended up buying a new place in town, finally moving out of the house where Cory had passed. It didn't take long for the fighting to begin. Explosive fights. Curtis felt like he had made a mistake marrying Erica. So in 2013, after 5 years of marriage, Curtis files for divorce from Erica. After the divorce, Curtis was once again quick to find love. Her name was Christine. Around 6 months after they had began dating, they were married. Christine stepped into the mother role for the boys, taking them to school, cooking, cleaning, and she ended up adopting the boys as her own.
Oh, wow.
It was late 2013, and Adam Gipsum with the Quincy Police Department was sifting through old files. He read Cory Lovelace's report. The arms elbows on the bed, forearms up in the air, frozen. They take the file back to the original doctor. They're going to reopen this case.
Wow, okay.
Detectives also question Lindsay, the daughter, and Lindsay says that her mother had been up and walking that morning. She had, in fact, been alive up until they all left for school. Around this time, the new pathologist was reviewing the reports. Like the detective, she feels like the death of the victim had to have been about 10 to 12 hours before those pictures were taken. The abrasions around and inside of the mouth suggest suffocation occurred. On Wednesday, in August 2014, Detective Gibson arrested Curtis Lovelace for the murder of his wife. You are not missing any evidence. This is all they have. So Curtis is taken in, and in his interview, he claims to not even remember if he took the kids to school that day. They indict him anyways. Detectives then bring in each boy from the family, and Larson tells them in his interview that his mom didn't wake up that morning and that he had actually gone into her room to wake her up and he couldn't wake her up, so he just went back downstairs to hang out with his dad. But the older two boys say, no, for certain, our mom was alive and walking around that morning before school. Curtis is charged with murder and pleads not guilty. His trial date is set. Prosecution also says that Curtis smothered Cory with a pillow the night before. And Lindsay testified. She tells jurors she's no longer sure that she saw her mom that morning. The only scientific part of this case at trial is the picture of the body being in rigor mortis. But that still is no direct tie to Curtis. And because of that, it was 6 guilty, 6 not. The judge declares a mistrial. Curtis and his new wife say, no, we are going to go to trial. You are not going to say that you did this because you didn't do it. And so they get ready for another trial. This is when the Exoneration Project hears about the case. All of the friends gathered enough money to get Curtis out of jail on bail. So he'd been sitting in jail for 2 years. The new trial was moved to a city about 2 hours away. And so in March of 2017, his second trial starts. There were a couple different things at this trial, and one of them was that Erica testified at this trial. She didn't testify at the first trial, and she states that during their marriage, Curtis was drinking a lot and he was physically violent towards her, and that when drunk, he once blurted out, "She was writhing underneath me." During cross-examination, the defense confronts Erica about her allegations. He also went down afterwards a huge list with the defense of everything else Curtis had done to her during their marriage, blurting out at the end that he had been poisoning her, just like he did this, he did that, he was doing this, he was even poisoning me. The defense actually did this on purpose. What else did he do? Because by the time she finished on the stand, she came off extremely exuberant and unbelievable, even crazy. And the big blow that came at the second trial was the responding EMT officer who testified at the second trial but didn't testify at the first trial, claims that he had moved Cory's arms when he arrived to check for heartbeats, follow protocol. This was before those pictures were taken that were in the file. After a 7-day trial, the jury came back only after 2 hours of deliberating. Not guilty. This case is hard because if he didn't do it, he not only had his wife die unexpectedly, he also had 2.5 years of his life taken away. But if he did do it, it's horrible for Cory and her family because there's this huge question mark about how and why she died, and was it murder? Was it just an accident? So it's just kind of like it's a hard situation. And I was going through and reading comments on these articles, and someone mentioned that if Cory that morning had had a seizure due to lack of eating, right? She was not only had an eating disorder, but she was sick. Most of us don't eat a ton when we're sick because, like we're already not feeling good, and was obviously drinking alcohol. There was alcohol on the nightstand next to her, and had liver failure. She had a disease in her liver. Number one, a lot of times people with seizures end up biting their tongue.
That's a really good point.
Or they end up with a lip injury. Like they tell you to make sure to put a pencil in their mouth or something because they'll hurt their mouths. And that's the only abrasion that they found on her body. And number two, could her body have stiffened faster because she had a seizure and then kind of stayed that way? And so this one's just difficult because we don't have full closure on exactly how she died.
Yeah.